That's great.
I am horrible at making introductions. We're like already into this podcast right now, but I'll edit this at the beginning. For people who don't know, this is the infamous Master Shake, the infamous, I mean, the list goes on. If you look at his IMDb, it's insane. This is Dana Snyder.
To like 3. It's like, I mean, the list goes on to 3, maybe 4. Not like, hopefully I'll get a 5th in there one day, maybe.
Very nice, very nice. Now you're stuck in.
That's right.
You said Richmond.
That's right. It was lots of things were canceled on Monday, and the next available seat they had for me to Burbank was Wednesday. So I had to stay here all day yesterday. At least they canceled it before I got to the airport or anything. So that's a plus. And I got a nice hotel. It's a nice hotel room, big. The guy gave me a nice hotel, my friend. But yeah, I mean, it's sort of like a vacation, but it's also like I'm ready to get out of here. And I had stuff I had to do that I'm not doing. I'm just sort of sitting here watching movies and ordering DoorDash for all my meals. But how are you, Justin? Let's talk about the real stuff.
I'm okay. I'm still recovering. Sorry we had to do so much back and forth, but thank you so much for being patient and willing to work with my
amazing. I even got to do it. I usually want to do them, and then I never find the time to do them.
Well, so I'm glad you haven't found me annoying, and at least my persistence has paid off enough to see your beautiful mug in your Motel 6 right now. So that's
amazing. See,
very amazing.
Nice here. That's a plus. Look at this again. Look at this outside. I mean, come on.
Wow.
Wowie, wow. Beautiful sun. Just cool enough to not be hot. Mm-hmm. There's the convention center where we were. So then we walk out this door and then go do the convention, then come back, scoop-a-doop. And this building, well, the building I'm in, you can see it. This used to be a department store.
Oh, nice.
It's like the old school, whatever the hell it was, Rhodes something.
So are you able to say what you're doing on the road right now?
Yeah, I was at a convention. I was at a Comic-Con.
Very cool.
Yeah. GalaxyCon, to be exact. And we did our Drunk on Disney party. And that was about it. About all we did. Did some panels, signed some autographs.
So
that was it.
Where did this infatuation with Disney and just the whole theme park thing come about? Because even when you and I were speaking via email, you mentioned it just briefly. It was almost like you were giddy about it, like you couldn't help yourself. And then doing a little bit of homework, I see that it is a big part of your life, I guess you could say, you know?
I mean, that is my, if only we were back in my house, you'd see my room where I record and everything, but it's just nothing but theme park shit all over the place.
Nice.
I mean, I just always love it. I don't know why. That is my, like I go to these Comic-Cons and see all these guys, they're into whatever, Doctor Who or Marvel or Adult Swim or whatever. I'm like, no interest in any of that. But if there was a Disney theme park, look, I love it. I love going there. I love looking at all the stuff of like, what's the new stuff they're going to make. I look at all the things I love looking at all the things that they didn't make, that they wanted to make, all of it. I'm into all of it.
Now, is this something you went to a lot when you were a child and it just snowballed, or?
I mean, we went once a year. Once we moved to Las Vegas, we drove to California and went to Disney, like one time in the summer, and that was it. But that one trip, I still have all the guidebooks from every trip we took that I would save, and I would look at them and how could this place be so cool?
So is it everything under the sun, or is it just Disney theme parks, or is it Disney films that interest you, or is it just everything?
I mean, I feel like I watch all the animated movies out of obligation of my profession to watch and see, and I enjoy them. It's not like I don't like them, but my fandom lies squarely in the mainly 99% in the Disney parks. Like, I don't really care about Mickey Mouse and characters or any of that stuff, but like the park stuff, forget it. I'm all over.
Now, are you also
Love it.
going to like Universal and some of the other like major parks, or are you just like I love
I'll
Disney?
go
That's
everywhere.
yeah.
I love going anywhere, but given I mean, I think they do it the best. So for the most part, I think Disney's the biggest pain in the ass to go to. It's the most money and it's, they got to make reservations and all this stuff. And I don't really go a lot. It's not like I go there all the time, but I do love it. I'm
Oh
going to
yeah.
go in a couple of weeks for my daughter's birthday. We're meeting my niece and nephew and my brother-in-law and my parents. So we'll return from, I think we went maybe a year ago or something. So,
Personally, I've never been to Disney World, but I used to live next to Six Flags near Chicago,
oh,
and
sure.
I've been to a bunch of other places. Though I heard recently through a family member that they went to the Harry Potter one at Universal
Oh,
after
yeah.
going to Disney, and they said that that Harry Potter is something to be to just really stand back and just be at awe about it. I guess the time and the money and the detail is just ridiculous. They said walking down the forgive my name, forgive my ignorance, but walking down like the main town where Harry got his wand and everything, they're
Sure.
like the attention to detail is unreal. Like I can't.
Oh, yeah.
They were saying I can't wait to see what other parks will do after seeing what they did with that one. It's supposed to
Yeah.
be really
It's
cool.
on another level, that stuff. I mean, it's great. And the sad thing is you go there and you're like, oh, this looks like Disney. It's like it's that good. You
Wow.
know what I mean? All it's, it look, but I mean, they have great stuff at Universal, but that thing is exceptional. All that Harry Potter stuff is very, very, very cool
Yeah, I heard
because
it's
it's just, yeah, it's like totally thorough.
yeah.
It's not like a sign in the front and then they're just selling shit inside. It's like, oh, these are all weird, like Harry Potter shit. Like, like even the stuff they sell inside are like specific to the movies and things. It's not just Universal Studios sweatshirts and
Yeah, coffee mugs or what have you.
right, which I'm sure they have some.
All right, so there's like a billion questions that I would want to pick your mind and
Oh,
ask about, but I know your time is short, and I asked a bunch of people some questions, so I try to compile it into some Dana questions, some Aqua Teen questions, and then just like some miscellaneous ones, and I'll just try to kind of throw them all at you. First and foremost,
I got you.
I probably spoiled the joke, but I was talking with a bunch of different super fans, and they were like, Dana likes a good joke, man. You should really like mess with them if you get the opportunity. And I was like, I was thinking about wearing the Master Shake costume and putting up every single piece of Master Shake item. So when you turned on the camera, you would be like, what super freak did I just walk into? But I thought it would be
Oh,
like way too weird.
I've met those. I've been in someone's house like that, so I'm pretty jaded. Not jaded. What's the word? Used to.
Kind of numb to it by now.
Yes. No, I'm right.
In a previous interview, you mentioned that you're frequently auditioning for roles, which in turn can make it difficult to remember every single role that you read for. Sometimes
Mm,
jobs will never call you back for an interview, things just happen, you know what I mean?
sure.
With that being said, has there ever been an instance to your knowledge where a show was put on television and while you were watching it, you made the connection in real time like, wait a second, I read those lines. Wait a second, that was the part I went out for, but you didn't find out until it was actually being aired?
Oh, you mean that you didn't get it?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean that happens all the time. I mean, here's the thing: you audition for so much stuff. The fact that if you get 1 out of 50, that's like a great number.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean, that's like a very regular part of doing what we do. I mean,
For
that's
sure.
just like, it's like you shotgun, you audition for everything. Maybe you get a couple out of, you know, and then you get jobs too because you get the ones, it'll be the ones that we audition just like cold out of the blue, or you get the ones that are like people you've worked with before. So they're
Hmm.
like, I want you to audition for these parts. I like working with you and I want you to be in it, but I'm not quite sure who you'd be. So here's like, 5 different parts. So I do, probably like Jellystone. I do the show Jellystone, which is all the Hanna-Barbera characters. And I really wanted to be in it because it looks awesome. And it is, in fact, it is awesome. But I auditioned for it. But Carl is the guy who created it. And he did a show called Chowder that I was on. So I think he sort of sent me like, oh, audition for one of these parts. And then I got it. But, sometimes the thumb is on the scale a little bit of like, well, we also know, like, if it's between two people and they knew you, but they didn't know me. And let's just say we did the voice exactly alike. They liked it just as much for both of them. What's going to tip it over? Well, I know this guy and he's nice and he's fun to work with. And, I know him, or a guy we don't know who might be great, but could also be a pain in the ass. We never know. It could be we're rolling the dice. We've got a semi-known quantity on the left and an unknown quantity on the right. But that's like, too, once you work longer and longer, I noticed, like, you get to, everybody more. And then they start branching out like, oh, we did this show together, but now you're on this show. And then sometimes like, oh, I worked with him on this thing. He's good. Let's get him. Because there's so many voices that are just little. I mean, like parts, a couple lines. And it really couldn't be anybody. I mean, anybody could walk in and go like, hey, who put the garbage here? That's it. Like, I mean, they literally could get anything.
But what about one of
But,
those parts where you had a sizable amount of lines and you didn't get a call back, but you remembered the part because it was so meaty? Did you ever
I mean, I
see it?
remember a lot of those parts. Oh, sure. I remember tons of those parts because they're, it'll be like, oh, here's the villain for a bad, or like the new, like it's a new show and you audition for it and, he's going to be in every episode because he's either like they're like a regular on the show. That's what you want. You want the regular. Then you need to be in all of them. Yeah. I mean, probably, I don't always find them, but I certainly remember all the stuff I auditioned for. I mean, sometimes it's hard to find because either they don't ever happen or they make a pilot and then never comes to the light of day. But I mean, I look up all kinds of stuff like, oh yeah, whatever was that Tom and Jerry thing I did, like there's all kinds of weird things like that.
Has that happened though, where you looked it up and you're like, wait, I know I read for this, but I'm not on the cast. Like this went forward, but I didn't get the call back. Like, has that
Oh
happened
yeah.
a few times where you remember
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
oh, I definitely read for this one?
Absolutely. I mean, I probably read for 20 things this week. And I know I'll probably not hear back from any of them. And I know at least 50% of them will go forward and keep being made.
That's so boggling to me because I come from like a film and stage background, and I perform music, which is a lot more rehearsing, and you get into character development, and it's all in your head, opposed to and this kind of goes with a few people I've had on the show who are professional voice actors, where it's like the workflow and the hustle when you're able to be working is so quick that it's just ongoing, that it's almost like you don't have time to sit and marinate enough with a character to really get a connection. I mean, you have enough time to get an understanding and jump into it. And that actually leads
Sure.
me to another question, which is like, do you sometimes, because I know your background is with Broadway and you've done a bunch of other stuff other than voice acting, do you sometimes miss having the ability to be like, for the next year, I get to study this character? For the next year, I get to jump into this. Like, is there a part of you that misses that? Or do you like every day something new, something on the table?
Yeah, I don't like it. I hate rehearsing.
Ah, okay.
I think I have too short of an attention span. Like when we're getting into a second or third week of a run, like of course there's work you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, oh my God, I wish we could be in front of an audience already. I'm just ready to go. Let's get out of here. Let's get done with this. Get the costumes, put the lights up, like that's what I love about this. I mean, even from the start when we did Aqua, I think on very rare occasions, that I could probably count on both my hands. I never got a script before I sat down in front of the microphone. And they're like, and here's what you're saying today. Like, oh, okay. So you're almost like reading it in real time. I mean, it's not like I'm sitting there for an hour before we even record and reading the script. Like they would send it, I would sign the paperwork, I'd go into the studio, and we just start recording. And, Dave will tell you, like, all right, so here's what's happening. You're all sitting on the couch, and but also when we do that, I'm only doing one line at a time. But I like the quick turnover and the change. Keeps it much more interesting. I mean, I like rehearsing. I mean, I like doing theater and stuff. I love it. But this is much more for a myriad of ways. And also, like, you just in the thing, if it's something you don't like or something that's a little more laborious, it's going to be done in 3 hours.
Yeah.
When you're in a show that you don't like, for whatever reason,
3.5 months.
That can seem like, 3 decades sometimes. You're like, oh my God, if he says that line like that one more time, I'm going to, like.
There's so many interesting parallels there that are connected between the crafts, but you're absolutely right. And it's really interesting to hear that, because if that's what you feel you do well at, and for a character like Shake to be like that, where it's spontaneous right off the top of your head, I think you could probably get the best to come out of you in that way. It almost seems like the perfect pairing for those type of things. So I can see why that's attractive to you, because you're right. Sometimes some of those projects can seem like they last for decades. They are pretty tough. And when like, hey, my job is 2 hours long and that's the end of my workday, there is a lot of comfort, solace in that. There's something to that that's worth its weight in gold.
The downside of it, even with like some on-camera stuff, like I did this show called The Thundermans. It was like a live action. It was a show on Nickelodeon. It was like a tweenie. I did a voiceover, but then my character turned into a human every once in a while. And like, it's amazing on those things when they're sort of like cheap and move fast, that they are. So there's the director, but he's not like the director in a theater production. The theater director is talking to you as the actor, and how can we do this scene and all that stuff. Like 50%, I feel like, of on camera, especially with like TV, not movie stuff, but they're more concerned about keeping the production moving as quickly as possible and not wasting money. And a portion of that is they have hired you because they know you're going to do a job a certain way, and they don't have to worry about you. They don't have to hold your hand and say, like, okay, now remember, let's talk about what your character had for breakfast, and what. No, they're like, you come in here. All right, then he's going to say this, and then they immediately go back and like, okay, now when he comes in, because then they got to direct the cameras. That's what they're really doing. They're telling, all right, I want it shot from here. Like, that's the other stuff they have is more of a priority. So you are just, they know what you're going to do. I mean, they give you some direction sometimes, but it's not like in a play where you're spending hours figuring out a scene and where the change, it's just not like, especially that kind of stuff. It's like, it's very different. And the thing with voiceover like that too is, like, I had a thing maybe a week or two ago. I did not get these files, and it was for the Disney show I do, but it was for a song. And for some reason, I didn't know it was the song, but I got the music like the minute of we were recording. So I had to learn this song, which is fine, but that's the other thing about it. When you don't spend all this time, you're like, wow, whatever you did right here, that's unlike the theater, that's going to live forever.
Mm.
In 50 years, someone can be able to go to the television archive somewhere in some weird hologram place in the chip in their brain and find the way you did that line. So are you really happy with it? Because it's not going to, it will live forever. Sometimes you'll like record like, all right, move it on. I'm like, whoa, can I do that one more time? I'm sure I can do it better. And they're like, yeah, no, it's great. I mean, I don't do that a lot, but some people I know they do. Like they're always like, can I do it one more time? I mean, sometimes you got to do it where like you figure it out, but you're figuring it out over the course of saying it 4 times, as opposed to in a play you would have 4 weeks to figure it out. So it's like sometimes, because then it's immediately going to be in the thing. But I also don't watch a lot of stuff. I mean, I watch a lot of stuff, but not stuff that I do. I mean, I do watch The Ghost of Molly McGee because my daughter likes it. And I mean, that's kind of it. I don't know what else I watch. I don't watch anything. I mean, I watch all the movies when the movies come out. You know, like I watch Turning Red, all the big, Disney movies and all that stuff. And I'll watch like an episode of the show if I'm going like, I'm going to audition for this. I better watch it to see what it's like.
Familiarize yourself with the world.
Yeah, because sometimes they're like super cartoony, and then other times they're not. They're not cartoony at all. They're very, they're like example, like something like the regular show. They all just kind of talk like this. Yeah. Like, hey, how's it going? Oh yeah, we gotta go. But then like the Patrick Star show, everybody sounds super crazy, super as cartoony as you could get. But like they don't tell you when you get your auditions sometimes. They just assume you either know the show or that you're going to look. Or if it's a new show, they'll say, we're looking for natural voices. That means don't do that shit, because they're going to like just immediately throw you away. But that's also interesting when you see it then like, oh, that's what kind of voice they ended up going with. Okay, interesting. Well, like to see what they ended up choosing.
Yeah, sometimes the description can be a little misleading, and so it is always good to kind of do the homework to be able to like familiarize yourself, like I said, with the world. That's a lot of interesting information you just dropped on me right there. You got to give me a second to collect my thoughts. I think it's a major credit to what you do, and that you're good at what you do, because working in a studio with music or something like that, you've got an immense amount of time, like you said, in movies or Broadway or something like that. You have the freedom to be able to explore these things and really dive into the subject matter. But the workflow that you're speaking about reminds me of kind of the machine that is Days of Our Lives, where the production is just kind of going and going, and you are in and out, and that is it, because they are masters at editors. They are masters at what they want, and it's like a conductor coordinating something huge. You're just a small piece, but they know exactly where you're at. And that's good that they can rely on you, that you're going to deliver it in a couple lines. And that's a testament to the machine that you're working with, as well as a testament to you being able to deliver it right on the spot. But you mentioned something about, I don't watch a lot of the stuff that I'm in, or just, watch a lot of things. That's interesting, because there's a lot of artists who do that, and then a lot of artists who purposely don't do that, and they don't want to bring in more that's there, so they can just kind of organically kind of tap into what they feel is good. So there's a healthy balance to like not being completely subjected to everything. Also, it's probably good for the ego not to sit there and just watch your voice all the time.
Well, and also like, I mean, you do a lot of kiddie stuff. Like, I'm not interested in watching kid shows. I mean, I like them. Like, I do like watching Molly McGee when I watch it, and I watch because I like the guys who make it. I want to, everybody works very hard on all of those. Every show, people work very hard. And like, at least I can do is watch it once, so I know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, it's definitely for a totally different demographic. But you did mention on-screen roles, and I've got to mention a couple things here, but I want to say this first. You had an on-screen role on the show ER as the unforgettable role of Paranoid Man.
Able to get to everyone before the ER closes.
What about my headache? It could be a brain tumor.
I can't wait till next week. I've got the mother of all yeast infection.
Sorry to hear that, but you'll have to go find a doctor somewhere else.
Hilariously,
Paranoid Man.
Hilariously,
all denim jacket, denim pants. What about my headache? It could be a brain tumor.
This
That
is
was my line.
okay. Hilariously enough, another voice actor named Scott Grimes was also in the show, featured in the actual scene that you were in. I'm not sure if you were aware of that, but Scott Grimes does Steve Smith from American Dad now. So it's quite funny that you guys were both in the same episode, in the same scene. What happened? Was it a brain tumor? Did your character die or not? And do I need to buy the DVD of ER to figure out what happened?
I feel like for myself, as soon as he walked out of the ER, it was the most crucial episode they ever did. Don't forget, he walked out of the ER. They closed it down and dropped dead. It was in fact a brain tumor. It was actually some type of parasitic fluid backup from the parasites, and his head exploded the second he walked out. But they don't tell you about that because they're too busy following Scott Grimes around them with his little doctor coat. Instead of the people, they've got to go celebrity.
Well, it's understandable why he's doing voice acting now, because he's a shit doctor and let you die. So I'm really sorry to hear that.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a real, I feel like an expose on our medical system. That's what I brought to it. There was a girl when we were doing it. She was like an extra. My friend used to be on that show. And the one day I was there, he was not there on it. And I was like, God, because he was like he was like Scott Grimes. He was like a regular guy on, he was he was a doctor on the show. And I was like, I wasn't there.
Oh, God. I'm so glad you remember that line from ER. When I found that, I just
How could I ever
stop
forget
laughing.
You know what? We did a live action Aqua Teen show, Dave and I. We toured the country, everything else. We showed the clips. I showed the clip from that. I showed a clip from like 3 or 4 different shows I had been in, like television shows, in case there were any agents in the audience who wanted to give me and then we made a very elaborate. Dave was like, well, I was also in 20 episodes of The Sopranos as Joey Spaghetti. And he had just green screened himself in a scene with James Gandolfini. And then I was like, oh, I was in that too. And then it was the same scene with him green screen, with me also then green screened and like talking over him. It still makes me laugh. And I cannot find it anywhere. I don't know what happened to it, where it is. It's got to be somewhere. It was very funny. I played Dr. Cusimano. I had a big fake beard. It was really stupid in the best possible way.
You mind if I eat some spaghetti?
My understanding from Dr. Cusimano, your family physician, is that you collapsed, possibly a panic attack. You were unable to breathe.
They said it was a panic attack. Of course, all the blood work and the neurological work came back negative. And they sent me here.
You don't agree that you had a panic attack?
Who, me? Oh, him.
How are you feeling now?
Good.
What line of work are you in?
Waste management consultant.
We're in the mafia. Who, me? Oh, you're talking to him.
What part of the boot you from, hon?
My father's people were from Caserta.
Avellino.
I'm Sicilian.
My mother would have loved it if you and I got together.
I said I'm Sicilian. I'm from Sicily. Northern part, near Sweden.
Do you feel depressed?
Who, me? Oh, him. Oh.
Do you feel depressed?
Who, me? No. Oh, him. You got like a ton of books in here. Is this like a library or something?
Good. What are you doing here?
Hey, Gabriela says we're down here for the gabagool.
The gabagool.
Hey, T, let me ask you something. Yeah, I used to go to school with a guy named Artie Bucco. It's none of my business. But down at the club, the word is your Uncle Junior is gonna whack Pussy Malanga.
Oh!
Oh, June's gonna whack Pussy Malanga?
He's
Oh!
gonna do it at your friend Artie Bucco's restaurant.
Oh, he's gonna do it at your friend Artie Bucco's restaurant? Oh!
I would say 99% of your workload is voice acting these days.
No question.
Do you think you'd go back, or do you miss like more on screen work? Is that something that you would like to do if the opportunity presented
No.
itself?
No. I'm going to shoot a movie in like 3 weeks, and secretly I'm dreading it because it's much more pain in the butt, and it's going to involve a lot of makeup and gore and gunshots, and like voiceover is the best job in show business. I feel a great sense of enjoyment doing a theatrical show, but it's the same thing over and over. I get bored with it. I'm like, I complain like, oh God, I can't believe I got to be there in 20 minutes. Oh boy, oh God. And then I love doing the show, and then afterwards we're like, all right, great, but then you got to do it all over again. It's like, I get it and I love it. I like the process, but on camera I don't. You know, it's fun sometimes. Like I had a wonderful time doing Pretty Face, but also we all were miserable because we had to put that makeup on and all that stuff, which was not fun at all. But I mean, I am very, very satisfied with doing voiceovers. If I never did anything else, I would be perfectly fine.
Well, I think it suits what you're looking for, and I think you're really good at it. Though, pertaining to this topic, I got to ask this question: Kazooathon, singing in Philadelphia, Aqua Teen Hunger Force Live, like you said, you and Dave did a bunch of live stuff, and just a bunch of numerous other short performances of videos of you live on the internet can be found. And I mentioned something to you about this via email. I was curious, and now speaking to you now about the spontaneity or maybe sporadic nature of what voice acting can be. Do you think that you would ever try stand up or do anything remotely close to stand up with your background, on the stage and with voice acting? It seems with your type of comedy,
a lot of
it would
that
be
stuff
good.
your show. I mean, I've done a lot of shows that were 50% stand-up shows, but I'm not a stand-up, so I don't do. I've done I come out and do a comedy bit or something, like in a stand-up club. I mean, my friend Renee and I do stuff all the time. It's probably more theatrical than just being a. That's probably the one thing I wish I would have done a long time ago. Started doing stand-up, because if you're good, because it's certainly a craft and it's an interesting craft, but it is different every night. But it's also a real grind. But it's interesting to me.
It seems like when looking at what comedy has evolved to and seeing that there's so many different forms of it, it seems like what you do could be a perfect combination for like a night of Dana, where it's like skits, it's crowd work, maybe it's material, but it's all in one kind of encompassing show. It just seems like it would, I don't know, it just seems, I was surprised to see I didn't see something like that when looking into your background. I was like, man, it just seems like that's what he would be doing.
Well, our Dave and Dana live show was kind of like that, except for two of us, of course. But also we did, I did a couple shows like that in Seattle. Thing is, it takes a lot of time to get it all together.
Yeah.
And usually it's I'm just very lazy. I mean, yeah, I could be doing a show like that every week, I guess, but I just don't have why? I got enough shit to do. I got a 7-year-old running around my house. I got, I got all my work during the week. I got other shit I'm working on. It's like
Makes
a lot
sense.
of stuff.
Yeah. Well, you got to prioritize,
I mean, and then you got to worry about I got to sell tickets, and I don't want to. And then it's all the ego. If no one shows up, am I going to deal with that thing and like this and that? I'm like,
Yeah, it's
like
definitely
it's fun.
It's a grind, though.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, I know so many people. I have nothing against them. It was like, hey, come to my show. I'm doing a show Thursday. Like, all right, okay, all right. It's like you gotta, I'm not interested in being a press agent or a publicist, so I don't want to do that stuff.
Yeah, be your own promoter. Yeah, it gets tiresome.
Yeah, I don't need to.
Do you think you'll do more of the Dana and Dave live in the future?
I can't imagine we will. Dave is very difficult for him to get out of his house because he works so much that whenever he's done, he's like, I'm just going to have now, 4 days. I mean, the reason we didn't do it again was basically because his family was like, please don't leave that long again. And we were only gone like a month because our first tour was right around the time of like the third tour that Tim and Eric did. And I think Metalocalypse had just gone out. And the guys just set up the tour like, this is how it goes. The first time you go, you kind of play slightly smaller venues. This is the formula. They all use. Then you go the next time, and word of mouth from last time, you get a little bigger places. And then by the third time, you're playing out, these big, selling tons of tickets and all this stuff. And we did very good everywhere we went. But it was like we were at a 500-seat place instead of a 1,500-seat place, or whatever it was. But I was thinking, oh, great, we're going to be done with it all. Go back next year, it'll be a little better. Third year, it'll be a little better. More money, make the show better. But then, like Dave was like, "Yeah, I can't do it anymore. My wife will literally murder me if I try and go away again for another month." I was like, "Yeah, but you get paid for it." He goes, "Yeah, she doesn't really care about. She doesn't care about the money." I think someone is. Hold on a minute. This might be my.
You're all
my
good.
break time. I'm seeing if they're delivering the stuff. I had to get this equipment set here.
Is this your Grub hub that you're living off of in the hotel room right now?
It's going to be later. The Grubhub is coming later today. Let's see what's going on here. Luckily, I can see down here. I'm trying to get this cord because I have to record this thing and send it up. Sorry for interrupting.
Oh no, you're more
telling
than
me
fine.
it's. Make sure I don't miss this person because I don't know what they're going to do.
It's good that you're
People
on
walking
camera.
around.
You're on camera talent and not a cameraman because you're just the worst over here.
Oh yeah, no. And I'm holding a fucking iPad like. Maybe.
Are you still doing the Dino and Dana safe space?
Oh yeah, got to do it later. I think he's coming. All right. You know what? Let me go get it, and I have to do this audition, and then I'll be back on in like 30 minutes.
Sounds good, man.
If not, okay, I'll text you.
Sounds great.
All right. Thanks, Justin.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Man, thank you again for making time for doing this. I know my silly little ham radio podcast really appreciates it. And as I mentioned to you, you're like a special bonus extra edition episode with Dana Snyder to end my season 1. So that's really awesome, man. I've had a bunch of Adult Swim related guests on the show, and collecting is a huge part of my life. So to have you kind of, put the icing on the cake, so to say, is awesome, man. So thank you for subjecting a little bit of time, and hopefully...
Well, thanks for getting back to me on Reddit.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Speaking of which, where's my stuff?
Yeah, good question. Great question. Oh, God.
I'm just kidding. All right, well, let's keep crash coursing it into this. I was watching the playback, and I can tell that I'm, trying not to be a super fan, so I need to just shake myself out a little bit. But I think we both have a knack of wanting to talk, so I'm going to try to be as concise as I can, though it's not in any kind of slight that I don't enjoy the conversation by any means, but I know time is short, and I value your time, sir.
No problem.
So yeah, let's jump into it. You credit signing to ICM to the mystery man who walked into your audition and talked you up. Now, you told this story publicly on a podcast that got a lot of attention on the internet, and I'm curious, since that story has been out, has this mystery man ever contacted you?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
So, okay, there was when you went for an audition at ICM, you said a guy busted into the room, and it was like, oh, I hate to interrupt.
Okay, I know what this was. This is it's almost right, but it's not. It is, but it isn't. So I was in a class that it was like how to make a demo, like an audio demo.
Okay.
And part of the end of the class was we were going to have one-on-one with an agent from ICM who was going to listen to our demo and then give us pointers. Of course, the dream upon dreams is that they would sign you. That's why people pay thousands of dollars for these classes, on the hope and dream of getting an agent and doing what they want to do. But I was in there with mine. Some guy was in there and left, and then I went in there with mine. And like within a minute of us going in there, there was a pounding on the door. I was like, what the hell is that about? And it was the guy who was just in there a minute ago for his audition for the, his time was done. And then he busted into mine. But he came, he's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I am a humongous fan of your work. I love Aqua. Master Shake is my favorite cartoon character. Blah, blah, blah. I just happen to have the DVD. Would you sign it? I mean, all this stuff. And basically the ICM agent was like, well, I don't know what you're doing, but the fact that this guy would just come in and bust in and so then, yeah, I mean, I think it certainly showed them that whatever Adult Swim was, which they did not know at the time what it was, even though it had been out for a couple of years, that it was something and that they were fans of it. And that if this guy had enough whatever that he needed to bust back into our meeting. I mean, here's the thing. He could have waited for my 10-minute meeting to be done and I could have walked outside and he could have said that to me. But instead he felt the need to bang on the door and come in to tell me that, which I'm glad he did, because then the agent there, she was like, well, I guess you should come in and we should start doing stuff. It's like, okay. So yeah, that guy, I don't know who that guy was. He acted as if I paid him. I mean, that's something yeah. So now I know what you're talking about. Yes.
That's such a ridiculous story, and I'm gonna put so many different tags on this video because I want that guy to be able to hear that story, because you can't pay for.
I have no clue who he is. I mean, that's the thing. You couldn't you couldn't pay somebody to do that.
Exactly.
I mean, could, but and he I mean, I wouldn't have gotten with that. I still would have been in Aqua, but I wouldn't have had that agent, and then I got the agent, the same ICM in LA, which essentially I'm still with them, even though they've sort of the voiceover department is its own agency now. But I mean, I've had the same agent since I moved to California for whatever that was, 2004 or something.
That's
a long time.
That's a really good thing. This isn't to decredit any of the work that you've done, but after
it's impossible to decredit it.
After let's say the success of Aqua Teen came out, what would you say was your first real big job after your name kind of got
I can tell you. Well, I don't know if it's my name, but I know when I moved to LA, the first big job I got was I was on Chowder. It was a show on Cartoon Network made by the guy we were talking about who did Jellystone. And I did not audition. They were like, oh, you're doing Chowder. And I was like, what is Chowder? And I said, well, I said, no, I don't know. And I was like, oh God, I'm all nervous about it. I didn't know what they wanted me to do.
Mm-hmm.
But Carl called me in for this part for this guy named Gazpacho. It was supposed to be like one episode. And then I'm waiting out in the waiting room. And then I go into the thing. It was the first time recording a Cartoon Network. And who am I in the room with? The young man who plays Chowder. He's a boy. Tara Strong. John DiMaggio, and Mad Dog Murdoch from the A-Team. And I was like, holy shit. These are all the big guys. And they did it all together. It wasn't separate. So Carl just right away, he's sort of like, oh, here's your lines, but you can kind of go off on them. You can improvise. I was like, okay, because I had like a little monologue, and then I did it. And I was like, are they gonna hate it? And then John DiMaggio looks right over. He goes, "You're Master Shake, aren't you?" He goes, "Man, I was just listening to your album in the car." I was like, "Wow." Then everyone was very nice. And then I ended up being on a bunch of Chowder episodes, so that was good too.
Nice.
I think it was there as an oddity, but then they ended up. But that was certainly the first big that was my first legitimate cartoon, that wasn't Aqua Teen or C Lab 2021. Not that they're not fine shows, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't need to explain why I would call them. They're the real guys,
No, I totally follow you. Here's a little bit of a long-winded question. This is one of my personal questions. After listening to a podcast you did with Adult Swim, I was actually caught off guard and really happy to hear that you dove into the world of voice acting, and more specifically into the subtle nuances into it, and you were really attuned to it. I know a lot of singers who don't pay attention to these things, even voice actors who just do, while other people are very, very pinpointed on what is important. Specifically, your remarks on maintaining a healthy, strong voice was something that I was like, whoa, that is really cool that he's bringing that up and talking about it. As a smoker and myself and a singer myself, this hit home because it's a constant struggle that most people don't really get. They don't understand the differences in breathing and diaphragmatic breathing and all of that kind of fun stuff. Now, this podcast I'm referring to was recorded over 2 years ago. And since COVID hit, you've been pretty busy with work like many other voice actors, that it hasn't really hurt their industry as much as some other industries.
I think it's made it better.
Yeah, so I've heard. Yeah,
I think I've worked more because of COVID, I think, than without it, or
pre-COVID. Yeah. Now, I know you have your hand in a bunch of different projects right now. Currently, are you doing any notable vocal warm-ups or strategies that help your voice stay healthy while tracking? Have you moved any of that into your regimen since that last podcast when you're talking about it? Nothing?
No. Zilch. My voice is a little shot today because I was doing a convention for the past 4 days, so I've been talking nonstop.
Yeah.
But I mean, usually I don't really do many. I mean, if I have to sing or something, I'll do a warm up, but just a little bit. I don't want to do too much. I don't want to, I don't want to work twice. But I also have a pretty resilient voice. I mean, it's not very fragile. I know some people have they have to be very, very careful. And usually the parts I do are not, I don't have to, they don't sound clean, crystal clear and crisp. They're their characters are like booger face and, things that sound sloppy and disgusting. So it's to my advantage.
Yeah, it's not like you're going in there screaming your lungs off for every single, villain or something.
Oh, I scream my lungs off for everything, but I think I'm used to screaming my lungs off, so it's, a little bit easier for me.
You mentioned that you absolutely hate it when they make you rap as Master Shake.
Oh, yeah. I hate it when they make me rap as anything because I have no business rapping.
I wake up every morning with a Woody. You make him laugh, you get closer to the pudding. Happy birthday, Jesus! You are the one coming down to Earth from planet Krypton. It's all of my skills. They pay the bills. I'm ripping trills like Celine Dion. I ain't no hip hop beyond. I got a Glock 40 shots, 40 carry rock, jumping slam dunking like Hack-a-Shack. Best believe it now, son. 'Cause I'm black.
I'm terrible at it. I don't like it. I just had to record last week. I had to rap something. Maybe it was for the Ghost of Molly McGee. But I'm lousy at it. I wouldn't, They used to do it for them because they thought it was super funny because of how bad it was. And also they think it's funny because I don't know any modern music. Like they had to explain to me in the Foreigner Belt episode who Foreigner was. And I'm like, that's great. I just don't know any of it. I don't care about it. I listen to very old stuff, meaning pre-1950s.
The fact that you're not good at rapping makes it hilarious, and you should definitely do it more because it's great, and you don't have to be good at it, and it's awkward, and that is its own funny thing. And I just got to say that even if that's something you hate, everyone just really busts up when they hear it, man.
It makes my skin crawl.
I have a question that's semi-related to this that was a fan question. They say, I remember seeing somewhere that Dana said that he isn't the biggest music fan. He says he collects odd records and things of that nature. Fans should remember that Dana admitted he wasn't even aware of the Foreigner episode, as you just mentioned. Or who Foreigner was on that episode. But the fan asked, I was curious to know if he really doesn't listen to music at all, or was this just a joke, which I think...
No. I listen to lots of music, but I don't listen to popular music, like now. I don't listen to rock and roll stuff, or whatever the hell it's called now. I don't listen to that stuff. I just did I do a panel every time. I do What's on Dana's iPod, where I play the weird, really weird stuff. I listen to tons of music. I never don't have music playing. But what I listen to is I either listen to Radio T.T.M.S.G.P, which is all music from like the teens to the 30s, like sort of real old jazz music. I listen to theme park music, if it's got no words. I listen to Subsonic Radio. That's one that plays weird stuff from you know what I mean, from the parks and stuff. And then I listen to whatever I have. I listen to a lot of like jazz stuff. I listen to WWOZ. That's probably has the most. I listen to radio channels on my Alexa. WWOZ is the local New Orleans station. So they play kind of like New Orleans
Zydeco
music. Yeah, they play a little bit of everything. They play like Dixieland jazz. They play but modern stuff and old stuff. And then I listen to Radio KINE, which is the Hawaiian music station from Hawaii. And the similar between WWOZ and KINE is they do a lot of covers because there's only so many people making that kind of music, both New Orleans style or Hawaiian style. So there's a lot of covers, but frequently the same songs will be covered, New Orleans style and then also Hawaiian style, which is pretty crazy to hear them next to each other. But it's like happy music, it's like fun. I listen to classical music. It's all classical music. I like Baroque music. And that's it. That's all I got.
See, a question that I'm personally curious about is why, and where that comes from. Is that what you grew up on? Did your parents subject you to that? Is there a bit of nostalgia, or
no.
Have you always loved big band and stuff like that?
That's it. I always used to. Yeah, I think I used to find those records from my grandparents, and then I was like, oh, I like that better. I when I was little, I listened to like big band. I got the Smithsonian collection of classic jazz CDs. It was like a 6-set CD when we went to Washington, D.C. one time. And that just like opened my whole world of like, I would just listen to them over and over because it went from like really old, earliest recordings of jazz up until, probably the 70s or something, a couple. And then the next time we went a couple years later, I found the Smithsonian collection of big band jazz. I just listened to all those. I listened to those and my collection was that stuff, weird stuff, or movie soundtracks on vinyl.
Now,
I had a lot of movie soundtracks.
By weird stuff, like comedy albums or like, Halloween spooky sounds.
I would have some weird, I'd have spoken word stuff. I'd have ones I'd find like at the thrift store, like whatever, Jerry Gabrowski's Polka Party, or just like sort of oddball music record. I mean, some truly bad stuff, which I love, but then also just like some kind of like, Living Hawaii, all those old like 50s, 60s sort of backgroundy albums to play on your hi-fi. And a lot of those hi-fi albums, used to buy these hi-fi albums that like every track was something different, so you could test out your hi-fi speaker system.
Mm-hmm.
So one would just be Waves on a Beach. You could hear that. And then another one would be like, a marching band, as if it was walking around the mic at the whole thing, so you get that spatial sound. And or like weird celebrity albums. Like, I had a couple, I still have them, but there's one with like Burt Reynolds where he made an album called A Room for a Boy Never Used, about his infertility trials with his wife, Lonnie Anderson, at the time. But they made a record of of Burt Reynolds being interviewed by your local DJ. So what it was, it came with a script, and then your local DJ read it with the record. So it sounded like he was at your local radio station being interviewed by your local DJ, in hopes of buys. It just starts. It's like silence, and then it's Burt Reynolds going, "Well, thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here. I'm so happy to be here in your studio." Yeah. So, and like, oh, tell me about the album, Burt. Well, it's been a labor of love. It's just like, it's so shitty because and there's a lot of those. I have a Telly Savalas one. But like stuff like that, or like co-star albums. Those were fun. They were like a game, but there's like a Vincent Price one where you would get a script and you're supposed to act a scene with him. So it's like the gaps, and it'd be like, then it's Vincent Price, like, come into the room. Don't put that down. What do you mean? What are you going to do with that? And then you're supposed to like, I'm going to kill you. That's what I'm going to do. No, you wouldn't dare. You wouldn't think of it. But it's just like silence. And so my friends and I would get a tape recorder and, what are you going to do with that? I'm going to shove it in your butt and make you eat it. You wouldn't dare. Like, we'd put our own stupid little 5th grade shit on it to make them ridiculous, and lots of putting stuff in your butt and making you eat it type things. But I mean, I think that, I used to go to J-Mar Records in Las Vegas and buy it. Also because they were all like the cheap albums. And I just never liked like the modern music we were listening to. I was like, this is like whatever. I'm nostalgic about it if I hear it now, but I don't like get up and be like, you know what? I'd love to listen to Tiffany for a little while. I want to stroll down memory lane, listening to Debbie Gibson. No. I like a little bit of disco music. A little bit. But I do have a lot of disco albums, but it's like the Ethel Merman disco album and the Myron Florin disco polka album, and all those sort of back to like the weird bad music. But I don't find it bad. It's like I like it. I don't know what it is about it, but I like hearing the instruments.
Well, yeah, I mean, all of this is definitely instrument driven, a lot of the stuff that you listen to. But I just got to say, listening to you talk about the same topic via a few podcasts, but actually speaking to you about this now and just seeing how happy some of this stuff makes you just to talk about and to think about, I can really start to understand. I hope that people who watch this start to get it too, on why, obviously, why you like what you're doing because of your lazy factor, as you put it, but also why there might be some real cathartic connection there to your youth. Because this has been something that you've always been doing. Like you said, you would make these funny voices or do this with the record.
Sure.
So
yeah, with my job, absolutely. And I used to do, my friend Glenn and I, we would do the announcements every day for school and middle school. So we would like write a script, do different voices every morning. We go in with the tape recorder and play background music to have it like themed. And even before that, when I was little, we had tape recorder. We would do like little audio movies It would just do voices on it. And I mean, I feel like in some way, shape, or form, I've always been doing voiceover.
Well, now, forgive my ignorance here, but you didn't go to school for voiceover work. You were going to school for Broadway, correct? For stage work.
Well,
to
not
some
for,
degree.
yeah. I got my degree was in musical theater.
Okay.
So I had a Bachelor of Fine Arts in music. So I had to take music. But the thing is, like, I think there's a difference between cartoon voiceover and, like, buy the new Audi.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
most people I know who do it are all just, I mean, it is just acting. It's not, I mean, you can learn technique with the mic, but it's still, you got to tell a story and you got to act it out. Like, we always meet people that are like, oh, all my friends tell me I have a great voice. I should get into voiceover. I'm like, all right, well, first off, if you're doing what your friends tell you to do, then tell them to fuck off and mind their own business. Like, and secondly, it's not just about having a great voice. You got to be a great actor. And if anything, it's harder to be a voiceover because you can't do all this stuff with your body. You have to just make the sound, and a lot of people like being able to imitate somebody's voice or something does not necessarily mean that you're, well, I'm sorry, that means someone's at my front door. Doesn't mean that you're, and it's still acting. You gotta be able to act, which some people get it and some people don't get it. I mean, the best thing anyone could take is to take acting classes or improv classes, something that you got to perform and make choices and make quick choices. And sometimes you're going to see him. He's this guy. You have to sit there and think, all right, what's he going to sound like? But sometimes they don't even know. They just know, but you sit there like, all right, if you and you don't always get a picture. Most of the time, I feel like you just get a description.
Which is pretty vague right out of the get-go, because it's usually one or two words describing a character, and you're like, huh?
Or even if it's a lot, it's like it backs up on itself, like, like, oh, he's really slow, but he's a really smart guy. Like, all right, so what is which is? Or the death knell. Maurice LaMarche told me one time, he goes, did you see this? Oh, we were in a waiting room for an audition. He's like, did you see this? I said, no, what? He goes, you're not going to get this part. I said, why? I said, I mean, you're probably right, but why? He goes, read the description. And it said, a voice much like Dana Snyder's as Master Shake or something like that. And he goes, it's the death knell when they put your name in the description. I said, yeah? I said, it seems like, he goes, yeah, it does. Doesn't it seem like you should just get the job? And yet, he goes, I've had my name in things for certain voices I've done for 50 times, and you never get those ones because they're. And then why do they put your name in? He goes, it's a great question. Nobody knows.
What's the story? Charlie Chaplin came in third place in a Charlie Chaplin lookalike contest?
Oh, yeah, right. Exactly.
Man, that is just being somebody who's always been behind and always struggling. That, I don't know, I look back on my past and it's surreal that I'm able to do things like this and even be able to do what I'm doing with my life. It's got to be indescribable to think about that the fun that you were having with those silly records with your friends has snowballed into what it has. That's got to be just wow. I hope you stand back and smell the roses every once in a while, because that's really, really cool.
I mean, I am very, very, very appreciative of what I have. I feel very lucky. I feel extremely lucky for what I get to do.
That's good, man.
I know what side my bread is buttered on. And I'm very appreciative of it.
You credit Ashley Ward for directly connecting you with Dave Willis. Ashley doesn't work for an agent or agency. As general and as boring as this question is, based on the experience with Ashley and every other lead you have gotten throughout your career, for up-and-coming voice actors, do you think the old saying, it's who you know, still carries as much weight versus the conventional track that most people do, college acting classes, audition? Or would your experience say that it's a combination of kind of all of it put together, as well as just being a decent person? Because as many people learn, you can be as talented as you want, But if you're an asshole, you're not going to last in this
Yeah.
industry at all.
Nobody likes assholes.
No.
Because there's, like we were talking earlier, there's 8 other guys who can do exactly what you're doing.
Mhm.
So why would they pick you if you're an asshole?
Yeah.
They want the guys who are nice to work with, like who are fun to be around, and plus the situation, not make it stressful and worse. Well, Ashley, I should say, is I went to college with her,
Mhm.
and she went to high school with Dave Willis. So when Dave Willis called her about, do you know anybody? But I do think you definitely should have training. I mean, there are people who have no training and go in and do it. But I think these days, and also, I don't know anybody who's on the same track. Like anyone who's like, you know how to be a doctor. You take these classes. Then after you're done with college, you go to medical school.
Yeah.
And then you find you intern somewhere, and then you make your specialty. That's how you do that. You'll be a lawyer. You got to go to school for this. You take whatever the lawyer test is. Then you take your bar exam. Then you find a place to work. Acting is very different. It's one of the few things that everybody can say they are one and not actually
Do.
be an actor.
Yeah.
Yeah, like anybody can just say, like, oh, I'm an actor. Like, okay. And the same thing with voiceover. I mean, I don't know any two people who have the same route of how they got into it. I know some people who did they would do online, they would do things like stuff like, like books on tape and stuff like that. Some of those other more sort of like peripheral but important voiceover jobs. And I mean, everybody I know in cartoons is like, well, he was a stand-up and this guy did stuff on the radio. And I mean, everybody has like a different way that they got into it that I know. But I would think, as fortune favors the bold, and as far as knowing somebody or whatever, it's great to know them, but then you got to be ready for it when you get your shot.
Yeah.
You got to be prepared. It's not luck. It's being prepared at the right moment and being able to show that you're prepared. Like, I know a guy, Max Middleman. He does lots of voiceovers. He's a friend of mine. He plays what's the one? All he wanted to do was do voiceover. He, to me, seems to have most like, here's the system. He studied acting, I think, but then he wanted to do voiceovers, so he found places. He's very driven guy. One Punch Man, that's one of his parts he plays all the time. When he got to LA, that's the other thing. You also got to go where the work is.
Yeah.
Like it's back to that thing of these guys, like, why wouldn't they hire me? Well, you're an asshole and he's not. But also it's like, well, you don't live here. Why are they going to hire you if you're not taking the monumental risk that this other guy is taking and showing how serious they are? And I understand that not everybody can just get up and move, especially a place like that where it's super expensive. But it's just the fact they don't take you seriously because you're not taking it seriously. Like, you're scared or whatever. Like, all those things are legitimate reasons to not do it. But that's the thing. Then just don't do it. Find something else. Don't be on the fence. Do it or don't do it. But don't,
Yeah.
But he got to LA and he signed up for every voiceover class he could find. He did every single one of them. And the thing is, most of those voiceover classes are taught usually by casting agents. So they get used to you and they hear you. And I mean, he took tons of them. And eventually he started getting auditions and then he started getting parts. And now he's like, he's all over the place. We did, what did we do together? I met him when we did Thundercats. We did Thundercats together. And he was Lion-O. And I was some, asshole in the back doing God knows what.
Talking about boogers.
Yeah, but like he's like the only guy I know who seems like, but you can't because it's talent, and talent is like, an unquantifiable thing. But he's like, I got here, I signed up for this class first, then I did this class, then I just kept doing classes until something happened.
So it sounds like a combination of all of it too, because if he's meeting casting directors
Yes.
and he's harnessing his craft while spreading his name throughout all of this and learning all the little tricks, so it really does seem like a combination of all of this is good. And obviously,
Absolutely.
some of this can't help. If you know someone that's great, or somebody in the industry, that's fine. But like you said, you got to be able to capitalize, which touches on everything.
Yeah, I mean,
else
knowing
you're saying.
somebody, you got to be ready for it, and also you got to be, you never know. I mean, I don't know what my life would have been like had Dave not called Ashley Ward, and Ashley had not mentioned my name to put my hat in the ring for it. I mean, who knows? Who knows if Aqua Teen would have been on as long as it was? Who knows if I would have, anybody, anything. I mean, it's all such a like pixie dust, everything forms into this little perfect storm of ingredients. But yeah, because I remember him saying the guy who they had heard the most, that sounded the most, sounded like he was doing like Christopher Walken. Because everybody else they were auditioning for Shake was in Atlanta, and they were all seeing, superheroes. So they were all trying to do some kind of like, I'm the one who wants some jeans.
Welcome to the, all very
it was like, and it was like, they were like, it's just not at all what they wanted at all. And then she was like, well, what are you looking? What did you want? And Dave told Ashley, he was like, we want him to sound like his mouth writes checks, his body can't cash.
I'm not detecting any vampiric activity. Besides, it's 2:00 in the afternoon.
He's a reverse vampire. They crave the sun.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they love it. They love to get tans.
No kidding. Where are they from?
It's Pennsylvania.
Oh, no.
And then Ashley immediately said, oh, that's Dana you want to talk to. I'll give you his phone number immediately. That's exactly who you should talk to.
That's great.